Ulysses by the Merlion by Edwin Thumboo. I have sailed many waters, skirted islands of fire, contended with Circe who loved the squeal of pigs, passed Scylla and Charybdis to 7 years with Calypso, heaved in battle against the gods. Beneath it all I kept faith with Ithaca, travelled and travelled, suffering much, enjoying a little, met strange people singing new myths, made myths myself. But this lion of the sea, salt-maned, scaly, wondrous of tail, touched with power, insistent on this brief promontory, puzzles. Nothing in my days foreshadowed this half-beast, half-fish, this powerful creature of land and sea. People settled here, brought to this island the bounty of these seas, built towers topless as Iliums. They make, they serve, they buy, they sell. Despite unequal ways, together they mutate, explore the edges of harmony, search for a center, have changed their gods, kept some memory of their race in prayer, laughter, the way their women dress and greet. They hold the bright, the beautiful, good ancestral dreams within new visions, so shining, urgent, full of what is now. Perhaps having dealt in things, surfeited on them, their spirits yearn again for images, adding to the dragon, phoenix, Garuda, Naga, those horses of the sun, this lion of the sea, this image of themselves. Now, of course, reading this poem, it's made pretty obvious that the Merlion is sort of like a very, very conventional hero. So the Merlion is like this really exalted symbol of Singapore, this really superhuman figure, superhuman in the sense that the Merlion is able to transcend like human constraints and human mortality and all that. But yeah, and it all comes together with the very image itself, right, of Ulysses, this Greek hero who fights past all these sea monsters and gods like Circe, Scylla, Charybdis, and Ulysses literally heaved in battle against the gods. And it's interesting because in the first stanza, the final line, Edwin Thumboo here actually mentions the idea of myths. Because when we think about myths, usually there's connotations of some like really deep cultural or historical tradition, maybe even fantastical sort of connotations. But if we actually consider the truth behind the creation of the Merlion, it was really just a symbol created by the Singapore Tourism Board just to promote tourism, really. And I think another interesting thought to consider here is whether the act of myth making is heroic in itself, right? Because myth making, when you come to think of it, it's something that transcends the individual. It's something that lives within and lives among a collective. It's something that can bring societies together and even bring societies apart, right? And enough digressing. So yeah, it's a lot of talk about the Merlion being this strange half beast, half fish creature, and throughout the poem, the Merlion is sort of painted as or implied as standing on sort of equal footing with Ulysses. So it's like a testament to the sort of power that the Merlion inspires in people. And of course, the stanza here, people settled here, brought to this island the bounty of these seas, built towers topless as Iliums. They make, they serve, they buy, they sell. So the plosive alliteration here, brought, bounty, built, it further highlights this the role of of economics and Singapore's economic success actually as a trading post in developing that national identity and developing that myth, that legend of the Merlion. And so that's something to keep in mind for later when I start reading Alfian Sa'd's The Merlion. And now another very, very striking few words here. In this stanza, despite unequal ways, together they mutate. So they, referring to Singaporean citizens. And mutate here is a very striking word to use because mutate would sort of suggest like an inherent incompatibility. It sort of suggests something that's unnatural, that doesn't follow the laws of nature, which isn't wrong, considering the time period and even considering the demographic of Singaporeans today. These are people of different races, different religions. These are a very diverse group of people with largely differing beliefs, which is of course referenced in these few lines as well, right? Search for a center, have changed their gods, kept some memory of their race in prayer, laughter, the way their women dress and greet. So there's an attempt here to just put down all your various cultures and religions and whatnot and try to find a sort of common ground in maybe a common human instinct. And right, moving on to I think what is the most interesting image or the most interesting final few lines here. In the final stanza, Thumboo or the speaker mentions that their spirits yearn again for images, adding to the dragon, phoenix, Garuda, Naga, those horses of the sun, this lion of the sea, this image of themselves. So the first point to consider here, which is made quite bluntly, is that the Merlion is a one-for-one representation of the Singaporean people. And of course, this links to that narrative of struggle, the narrative of eventual triumph over all the adversities that people face into building Singapore into the prosperous nation that it is today. And I think another point that we can consider here is it's also referencing our essential desire for a combined or for a fixed national identity. Or it could also mean a desire for a superhuman representation of ourselves. So superhuman, again, as in not really like superhuman, but as in like just a symbol that is able to transcend like all those vulnerabilities that come with being a human. And yeah, this is a very basic sort of heroic poem about this Merlion as a representation for the Singaporean people who have triumphed over all the obstacles that are thrown at them and eventually succeeding. And it's a very beautiful celebration of that, I would say.